This topic is very close to my heart because since medication safety is my passion, this is not complete without saying that pharmacovigilance is one of the pillars within the medication safety. And we know that many hospitals around the globe, many institutions, they are striving and they are at different stages of working. Like some have achieved to a maximum level that their pharmacovigilance programs are sound and established. Some are in midway and some are still struggling. And that I regret to say that many of hospitals in Pakistan are in stage 3, that they are struggling to have a basic pharmacovigilance program in their organizations. So what I have tried to do in this presentation is that what are the challenges, what considerations you have to be taken into account while you want to establish a pharmacovigilance setup in your organization. So I have nothing to disclose. So moving on to the actual topic, actually, this definition actually really excites me because this is not just a bookish information, but something to glean out of it, like what exactly is expected out of pharmacovigilance. So it is a science and activity relating to the detection, assessment, understanding and prevention of adverse effects or any other medication related problem. So many of times we feel that pharmacovigilance is something to be termed as finding out the unknown, like discovering the issues, discovering the errors, incidents, and reporting it is the just the requirement of pharmacovigilance. But to me, the main important thing is the last two words, the understanding, that is the analyzing of that data, whatever you are gathering, and making that information into useful knowledge in order to prevent those issues from happening again. Because it's not mere data collection, and you have to be using those that data or that information and for the benefit of the patient and for the prevention of harm. So definitely, if you talk about the objective of pharmacovigilance, it's a constant process. Obviously, you cannot have one-time activity and just then relax. It's an ongoing process. So it has to be established in a way that it supports the ongoing activity, and it focuses on the safe use of pharmaceutical products and helps in minimizing the risk of any harm that may occur to the patient. So the focus is, again, I'll just reiterate that not just the data collection. So it is to be understood, analyzed, and used in the improving the processes. So I'll be talking about some key challenges because if I expect the audience who are listening to this presentation that by the end of it, you will be able to know that how you are going to establish the pharmacovigilance, then obviously you need to know that what are the challenges. So you need to identify these challenges within your organizations and overcome them. So the first challenge, obviously, is organizational culture. And as you know, that any change, any improvement activity that is taking place within an organization definitely is impacted by the culture. So the goal of organization has to be very clear in this regards. That is, are we putting patient safety first or not? So if it is the case that yes, we are putting patient safety first, then only there could be the changes, there could be infrastructure, there could be the resources for pharmacovigilance activities, and only then people will devote their time and efforts towards this program. And if it is not the case, then obviously no effort will be seen. So you have to see and assess in within your organization that is it just are we saying that yes, we are patient safety focused, we are patient centered, or we are is this being exhibited in whatever activities we are performing, whatever policies and procedures we have in place, or how we are treating and training our staff in order to exhibit all those things that are written in the paper. So accountability is there or not? Just culture, like who patient persons and staff, who they are accountable for their actions, and they are being disciplined for any reckless behaviors or at risk behaviors that they are exhibiting or not. And before we expect that staff perform and staff have enough insight into patient safety, are we providing training before expecting that from any of our staff, and we are providing infrastructure and resources to enable them to actually do the job in a patient-centered and patient-safe manner. So, is there a culture that accepts mistakes and there is a willingness to improve? If yes, then obviously in that particular culture, the pharmacovigilance activities will definitely flourish. Otherwise, that would be really hard. And last thing, as I mentioned before as well, that data is used for positive change. Data is not collected for the sake of collecting. Somebody is looking at that data, reviewing the trends, identifying what can be improved, what can be done in order to prevent, and then some positive changes are coming out of it. So if it is the culture, then obviously you will have success in having established PV programs. But if it is not the case, then you have to first change the culture, and that I assure you is not an easy task, but you have to start from somewhere. So the clue you might get from this, in order to assess that आपकी organization is patient safety focused and patient centered or not, just look at this behavior. What is usual first response of your management when an adverse reaction or adverse event is reported? So are they focused on the people who did it, or are they focused on the processes and the environment in which that error happened? So are they focused on who, or are they focused on what went wrong? So if they are focused on people, obviously there would be a culture of blame, and that is not a successful culture to establish a PV program. But if the focus is on the processes, the interlinking of steps, the stakeholders involved in that process, and a willingness to improve that, only then this change will happen, and the safety element will come into play. The second challenge usually that we face is that reporting and analysis challenge. So reporting. So this is a survey actually that was published in Journal of Pharmacovigilance in 2015, and they surveyed approximately 300 doctors. And the major finding of that survey was doctors were not able to know that what is an ADR. आप ADR कहते किसको हैं? This drug has this side effect. We know it. ये तो literature में भी लिखा है. ये इसके leaflet में भी लिखा है. So is this an ADR? Or ADR is something which is not expected and unrecognized or bizarre kind of a reaction that is coming out. Is that an ADR? So there was a lot of confusion that what to report. The second thing was, what exactly are the objectives of PV? Are you going to, reprimand us for any ADRs or adverse events that are happening, or the organization would be punitive towards us, or what are you going to do with this data? So if you say that this data is or will be used for the improvement, are really improvements coming out of this action or not? So there are doubts about that, the utilization of data. And what is the procedure to report? Should I call somewhere? Should I fill a form? Should I just tell verbally to somebody? What should be the mechanism? So people, especially this survey was for the doctors. So as you can see that these are not, very big challenges. They are not talking about infrastructure or very, big things. They are talking about very small things, but that has a very detrimental effect on reporting culture, and and the confidence that the report will turn out into something positive. So reporting is a challenge, and in any organization you need to be very clear on these three scores, that what are the things to be reported, what is an ADR, and what should be reported, how should be reported. Either you are making a form, either you are making an online entry mechanism, you are instituting a hotline service, whatever is the case, you need to be very clear that how the ADRs will be reported in your organizations, and the objective of reporting, that the people, the staff should have confidence that how this data will be used and why they should be reporting this data because of attaining that objective. So reporting challenges, first thing that must be overcome. The second challenge is related to reporting, again, is the analysis. So obviously you can't do the analysis unless there are reports. So once the reports coming in start pouring in, then obviously there is a challenge that who is going to review these reports and take out some meaningful information out of that data. So there are procedures called causality assessment. So for example, if an ADR is reported with particular drug, that this drug has caused, suppose, seizures. So in order to establish that that drug is particularly responsible for that ADR, or there are other confounding factors. So you have to do a causality assessment. So are the people are trained to do causality assessments for all the ADRs that are being reported? So if you see out there in the literature, there are almost 25 plus assessment algorithms available. But and there are plenty of literature around each of them, that how reliable are them, how are they reproducible, they are reliable or not. So, but most commonly used one is the Naranjo scale, that most of the hospitals are used to doing it, and that is a quite simple thing. And but again, if you are selecting Naranjo scale for causality assessment, then people have to be trained that how to perform it and how to convert the data into something called probable, possible, or definite kind of association with the ADR that is reported. The third challenge that usually we face is the efficacy versus safety. So the point is, I would like to make here that many of times we feel that pharmacovigilance is something which is finding the unknown, like an ADR happened and somebody reports it, and that unknown is uncovered. So it is most of the time retrospective, that the reaction has happened, the adverse event has happened, and then you are reporting it. But to me, this pharmacovigilance is not just retrospective, it is prospective as well. So, and it is proactive as well. For example, if we already know about certain drugs that they cause adverse reactions and they are unsafe, and they are some other drugs are safer options in certain particular indications. So this is a pre-hand information we already have about certain drugs. So in this slide, I've just given one example on the carbapenems, that we know that meropenem, imipenem, they both have same coverage. They are from the same class. They have almost similar indications. But if you see the adverse reaction of seizures, imipenem has seizures incidents or prevalence up to 3 to 33%. And meropenem, doripenem, ertapenem, the seizures rate is less than 1%. So can you restrict the use of imipenem in your organization while promoting the use of meropenem in patients which are prone to having seizures or already are on anti-seizure medication, for example? So this is a known information that you can proactively use to inculcate in your system in order to prevent harm. Because it's not just the reporting, something has happened and somebody should report. It's also about, as I mentioned in the initial slides, about the objective and the definition of the pharmacovigilance. It's also proactive, and somebody should be looking at it in that manner as well, that known information is also used for the prevention of harm. The next challenge that we usually face in our hospitals is the reference point, because once you are doing the causality assessment, is this reaction all actually related with the drug or not, then you tend to find out literature कि कोई case report, कोई case series, कोई ऐसा article which states about the same problem that has happened to a patient ever. So most of the times, very limited number of cases are published, and reports are poorly documented. So you don't get a full information, or even if it is reported, and delay in occurrence in publication of adverse effects. But still, you have to have a repository of information and access to information, just in case you are to analyze a particular adverse reaction, and you have to establish the causality of that issue. So the problem is many hospitals and institutions don't have a good access to drug information resources. So that is one challenge, that if you want to have a pharmacovigilance in place, you must see that that kind of approach is there, and you have this access. Your staff has the training to do the causality assessment, and they have access to the drug information and literature available out there in order to perform the analysis. The next challenge that we face is actually the capturing of adverse reactions. So, just like I mentioned before, that most of us rely on the retrospective reporting that the error or issue, the incident, ADR has happened already and somebody is reporting it. So, any organization willing to have a pharmacovigilance program must consider these questions, that is it already there, and if it is not there, you must try to have them defined and being activated in your system. For example, do you have a policy on reporting and capturing of ADEs and ADRs? So in that policy, have you made it clear that what to report, when to report, and who should be reporting? So if these three questions, because as I mentioned in the previous slides, that in the literature, when once you survey the healthcare providers, there is a huge confusion about these three questions, that what, when, and who should be reporting the ADR. So definitely the policy answering these three questions will ease out the process, and the healthcare providers will feel confident in reporting the ADRs. The second point must be considered the mechanism of reporting. There could be manual reporting. You have a established yellow card or ADR form, and people are just reporting it on the form. Some organizations have transformed those yellow cards in an online or entry of the ADR, so people could fill the same information, same format, but online. So that's up to you, that what type of method of reporting you want to establish. Then second consideration is it volunteer, or it could be automated, or could be the combination of both. For example, if I'm a doctor in the clinic and I come across an ADR, so I'm voluntarily reporting it through the manual or online forms that are available. The automated system could be the EHR, the EMR system, in which you can see different triggers and the clues in the system. For example, abrupt discontinuation of the drug, abrupt de-escalation of the dose, holding an order, and certain other lab parameters that are deranged, which are related to a drug. For example, INR reaching to 7 and warfarin is discontinued. So this is a clue that an issue has happened, and somebody has to investigate it, that why this drug was discontinued and why the INR was such on a high level. So these are automated triggers that can be used within the system to, give a clue that something has gone wrong and somebody has to analyze them. So you can have either volunteer, either automated, and the best thing is that you should have a combination of both. Like I mentioned before, that PV is not just retrospective. You just can't rely on simply reporting something that has happened. It should be prospective as well. So the known issues, the known harmful effects of the drug are already categorized, prioritized in your setting. For example, if you are a chemotherapeutic unit, a cancer hospital, then you must be focusing on ADRs related to the cancer medications. They are already know and should be putting in the policies and procedures in order to mitigate them or prevent them, rather than waiting for something to be happening and then giving a reaction in that response. So it should be prospective plus retrospective. Then you must be defining within your organization that who will collect, analyze, and compile the data. And for example, the staff who are designated for this thing should be trained, that how to do the literature search, how to review the evidence, how to do the causality assessment, what drug information resources are available to them, and then making out of it that which of these ADRs are preventable and then which are not preventable ADRs. For example, a drug having a nauseating effect after being used, so it's a known side effect of the drug, and it can be preventable if the guidelines state that you pre-medicate with anti-emetic. But if it is not the case that you don't need any pre-medication, then it is not a preventable. You just have to consult the patients, and you might switch to another class of the drug if the issue is very aggravated. So that depends. Sometimes it is preventable and sometimes it's not preventable. For example, an allergic reaction. So patient got severe hypersensitivity or severe rashes from a drug and is designated as allergic to that drug. So if you are not marking allergy in the system for that patient, by a patient if gets encountered in the ER or OPD or coming back to hospital for admission, the patient might get the same drug again if it is not marked in the system that patient is allergic to it. So marking an allergy is an action that prevents that ADR from happening again. So both kind of prevention strategies can be seen in terms of using a medication to mitigate the side effects or adverse effects, or the actions in order to prevent them. Then the question to be asked that who will review and approve. So for example, your team has analyzed, you defined that causality assessment done, you have listed them to be preventable or non-preventable. Now where this data is going to go and who is going to review them and approve the strategies coming out of it, like for example, the guideline should include pre-medication, or this drug combination must not be used, or whatever the strategy coming out of the review of data. So who is going to review them? Most of the times is pharmacy and therapeutics committee in the hospital that has this data coming in, and analysis is being done, and then approval of the strategies that are suggested. Then finally, how this information will be disseminated and who will monitor the effects, that is this strategy, effective or not, and what are to be done if it is not effective, and going back to the drawing board, like for example, what could be done in order to make it successful. The fifth point is the capturing of ADRs. In this slide, you can see that this study reports that only 0.7% of the adverse effects are reported if you are just utilizing voluntary reports. If it is computer generated, approximately 9.6% of the ADEs, ADRs are detected. And if you are instituting chart review, 13% are reported. So there's no single strategy that could be the answer ki ji will use this particular form of capturing the ADRs. So it is recommended that you use combination of these strategies in order to get most out of your system, and then analyze that what is happening around and what drugs are causing more issues, and the safety concerns. Trigger tool is one of the data that is important, and you need to see that the use of antidotes, reversal agents, just like I said, INR was high, warfarin was stopped, and vitamin K was ordered. So sometimes you can see that vitamin K order can be traced back and see what has happened, and abrupt stop of orders. So these kind of trigger tools can be used. So again, these can be from medication and could be from the lab side and could be from the chart review based upon the physician order. So trigger tool can be all three types of them. So you need to choose that are you using medication, lab, or chart review, or all of them. So this is just an example of the Shifa yellow form for the ADR reporting, ADR hotline that we have. And definitely we need an oversight of the pharmacy and therapeutics committee. Must be multidisciplinary, all three stakeholders, doctors, nurses, pharmacists in representation. They must have an advisory role defined in the terms of references, and should be making policies and enforcing them. Involved in the surveillance and should focus on safety and prevention of it. These are just examples of different ADRs that were reported in Shifa, and we instituted some safety alerts and some guidelines out of it, like vancomycin related dilution, discoloration, or Redman syndrome. The second alert was related to mixing of tramadol and dimenhydrinate in the same syringe and patient getting shivering and rashes, and then acyclovir induced nephrotoxicity. So these were some information that we took out of our own ADR data, and we utilize this information into developing guidelines and educating our staff. So we regularly conduct our continuous education and awareness session for the doctors, nurses, and pharmacists on the spot. And definitely we focus on these 3 points, that they inculcate the trust that this data will be used to improve and for the betterment, and not for punitive action, and focusing on what to report, when to report, and how to report. So in conclusion, so you must work hard, because this medication safety cannot be completed without having a formal mechanism of pharmacovigilance in your organization. And in order to establish it, you need to see that reporting analysis and capturing related challenges of ADRs, ADEs are overcome, just like I've mentioned in my slides. And P&T committees or drug and therapeutic committees in the hospital must take a central position and active role, because they are the multidisciplinary teams and having a representation of all the stakeholders. So they have their influence and they can put their foot down for the improvement of the system and for the patient safety. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, the facilitator will accordingly be conducting them.